Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cimientos 2020. Cimientos is a play development program that has given hundreds of playwrights the foundations to explore the vanguardia through developmental workshops, panels, and stage readings. For our 20th season, and due to current health concerns, we're hosting these readings over the Zoom platform. We want to remind everyone that you can follow this reading live on Facebook, but you can also join us via Zoom. My name is Guillermo Severiche, and I'll be co-hosting this event with Andrea Baruffi. Today's play is The Impossible Escape of Don Misterioso, written by Hal Borden, and I would like to say hi to Hal. Hal, how are you?
I'm well, Guillermo. It's good to be with you today.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us and for sharing your play with us and with the audience. Today's reading is directed by Alejandra Maldonado. Alejandra, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Very happy to be here joining through Zoom. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Great, thank you. Today's actors are Christopher Cancel-Pomales, Luis Ponce, Francés Ramos, Juan Luis Acevedo, and Andrea Velasco. Before we begin, let me remind everyone that you can post a comment with your questions on Facebook at any time during the reading. If you are on Zoom, you can use the Q&A option. We will read them at the end of the reading. Finally, IATI Theater is a non-profit organization, and every actor is being compensated for their work tonight. If you want to support our theater, please visit www.iatitheater.org/donate. We can't stress enough how much your contributions of any amount help us maintain these programs, but also will be a tremendous support during these times of uncertainty. So with no further ado, welcome to Cimientos 2020.
The Impossible Escape of Don Misterioso by Hal Borden. Characters: Ramon, man, 20s, prison guard. Francisco, man, 60s, prisoner. Hidalgo, man, 40s, garden. Max, female, 30s, journalist. Place: El Penal de Santos, a prison in Guatemala. Time: spring of 1955. Act 1. Scene 1. A prison interrogation room, a chair and a small desk. Francisco sits in the chair. He wears a suit, he's handcuffed. Ramon, a uniformed guard, stands near the desk.
Cuénteme de Domingo García. Sabemos que lo visitó el mes pasado. ¿De qué hablo con él? Si no responde, será enviado al comité, ¿entiende?
Ramon turns his attention to an old leather suitcase on the floor next to Francisco. He hauls the suitcase onto the desk and examines a brass latch below the handle.
Deme la llave de su maleta.
No tengo llave.
Hay un ojo de cerradura. Debe tener una llave.
No tengo llave.
Ramon takes out a screwdriver.
Hay más de una forma de abrir una maleta.
He jiggles the tip of the screwdriver inside the keyhole on the suitcase. The latch doesn't move.
Eso tampoco va a funcionar.
Ramon drops the screwdriver and pulls out a hammer. He takes several swings at the latch on the suitcase, but the lid remains shut.
Eso no va a funcionar.
Ramon goes back to the desk yet again. He removes a serrated knife from the drawer.
Si no me da la llave, voy a cortar la tapa.
Francisco rises, hobbled past Ramon to the opposite side of the suitcase. Still handcuffed, he lifts the unlocked lid. Ramon now sees that the lid is hinged on the same side as the suitcase handle, and he realizes that the keyhole and latch are phony. Francisco hobbles back to the chair and sits.
No tengo llave.
Ramon starts to unpack the suitcase. The first item is a deck of playing cards.
¿Juega usted al póker? Ten cuidado de no jugar con las personas equivocadas.
Ramon continues to unpack the suitcase. He removes a vest, a bow tie, a couple of shirts, and a pair of trousers. When he comes to a bright pink leotard, he looks at Francisco askance.
Solía estar en el mundo del espectáculo.
Ramon tosses the leotard aside and finishes unpacking.
Eso es todo.
Ramon notices a seam in the lining of the suitcase. He cuts the lining with a knife and inserts his hand into the slit. After fishing around for a few seconds, he removes a powder blue envelope.
Perdió algo en el forro de la maleta.
Ramon opens the blue envelope, which contains several photographic negatives. He holds them up to the light.
¿Recibió usted estas fotos de Domingo García? Le hice una pregunta, respóndame.
Ramon notices that Francisco is no longer wearing handcuffs.
¿Dónde están las esposas?
Francisco removes the open cuffs from his pocket and innocently offers them to Ramon.
Estaban demasiado apretadas. ¿Las quiere de vuelta?
Lights out. Scene 2.
Bienvenidos. Welcome to Guatemala. 1,000 years ago, this land was the cradle of the Maya, the first great civilization of the New World. We owe thanks to the Maya for countless achievements. Their maps of the planets, their temples of Chichen Itza, their recipe for chocolate. The Maya even invented the number 0. So, beside everything else, we owe them thanks for nothing. But I digress. The glory of that ancient race was merely a prologue to the present day, when our nation stands at the dawn of another golden era. After a decade of struggle, we have ended the Soviet domination of our homeland. This was a great victory for the Guatemalan people, but we could not have won our liberation without the friendship of the United States. You are indeed a good neighbor, and we're grateful for your support. Of course, I am referring to moral support. Your shining example of liberty is far more precious than guns and airplanes. But we do appreciate the guns and the airplanes. Forgive me, I digress. I know that you're not here to discuss politics. Your time is valuable, just as my time is valuable. So we should begin with the question that is the foremost in your mind. How did the figure standing before you, Cesar Enrique Hidalgo, a man of obvious sophistication and refinement, how did I become the director of the 4th largest prison in Guatemala? I confess that was not a boyhood ambition. When a young man dreams of his future, he imagined himself a soldier or a football player or a priest. He does not yearn to spend the prime of his life surrounded by thieves and scoundrels. But do I consider my work to be somehow beneath me? No. The men of Penal de Santos have lost their freedom, but their circumstances is not so different from yours and mine. From the wealthiest king to the most humble peasant, every soul in this earth is confined to a prison of his own. Are your eyes too weak to see the sunrise? Then blindness is your prison. Are you too poor to feed your family? Then poverty is your prison. Do you love someone who doesn't love you back? Then loneliness is your freedom, is your prison. Have you committed a crime against the state? Then prison is your prison. You see my point? But even in captivity, we retain the most essential freedom, the freedom to live with dignity. And after we have served our sentence on this earth, we shall be released to a better place.
Hidalgo is standing in his office. Behind him is an ornate desk. On the back wall, a vertical map of the Americas. It hangs next to a filing cabinet.
So, what do you think of my speech?
Excelente, jefe, muy impresionante.
English, Ramon, we must practice for our guest. He's due to arrive soon.
Yes, señor.
As you can see, I'm quite relaxed, but do not mistake my composure for intelligence or for indifference. To be interviewed by Life magazine is a great honor reserved for men of special importance.
Why did they choose you? Sorry, what I mean to say, how did Life magazine discover your special importance?
I forgive your ignorance. Though I am modest by nature, my reputation extends far and beyond this country. Do you know that I received a master's degree from Columbia University in New York City?
You have mentioned it once or twice.
Of course, academic laurels will not impress Mr. Whitman. A writer of Life magazine is a man of the world. We must seize every opportunity to demonstrate our cultivation.
Opens a cigar box.
These are the finest cigars made in Havana.
What if Mr. Whitman does not smoke?
He's a writer, so two things are certain. He smokes and he drinks heavily.
Hidalgo gestured toward a whiskey bottle on his desk.
The Macallan is the most expensive whiskey in the world. A single glass costs more than you earn in the entire month.
The telephone rings.
Dígame. Está aquí. Please enter. ¿Dónde está?
Hello, you must be Mr. Hidalgo.
¿Quién es ella?
La periodista.
Oh, what does periodista mean?
A journalist.
Oh, that's me. I'm the periodista.
There seems to be a misunderstanding of some kind.
Which kind in particular?
I was suspecting Mr. Whitman, Max Whitman.
Well, I can give you 2 out of 3. I'm Max Whitman. Pleasure to meet you.
She extends her hand to Hidalgo. He fumbles for a telegram on his desk.
Last month, I received a telegram from Mr. Max Whitman of Life magazine.
Max takes the telegram from him.
This says Max Whitman. Where do you get the Mr.?
It was implied.
No, it was inferred by you erroneously.
May I see your identification?
She digs into her satchel and hands him a passport.
Maxine Whitman. The telegram does not refer to Maxine Whitman.
It was implied.
I must apologize. I was not aware that Life magazine employed a lady journalist.
You'd be surprised. They let anybody write for Life. Women, children, precocious dogs and cats.
She noticed the box of cigars on Hidalgo's desk.
Are those Cuban?
Hidalgo nods. Max takes a cigarette for herself and presents the open box to Ramon.
No, gracias.
I insist.
Ramon takes a cigar.
Do you have a light?
Hidalgo lights her cigar. Ramon waits for his own cigar to be lit, but Hidalgo ignores him.
Is this your first time in Guatemala, Miss Whitman?
Yes.
What are your impressions of our country?
I haven't formed an opinion. So far, I've only seen the airport and my hotel.
Which is your hotel?
El Palacio.
Oh, a fine choice. Although the rooms are small and the lobby needs refurbishment. Also, if you're prone to illness, I will avoid the swimming pool and the dining room.
That doesn't leave much.
No, but the staff is so delightful that you forget your surroundings. If you would like to see a more beautiful side of Guatemala, I can arrange a private tour.
That's kind of you, but first we ought to discuss why I'm here.
Of course, your time is valuable just as my time is valuable. So we should begin with the question that is foremost in your mind. How did I become the director of El Penal de Santos, the 4th largest prison in Guatemala?
I wasn't going to ask that question.
My apologies. You might conduct the interview in your discretion.
I'm afraid there's been some kind of misunderstanding.
Which kind in particular?
I'm not here to interview you.
That's contrary to your telegram.
Max grabs the telegram from Hidalgo.
I am writing story for Life magazine. Stop. Understand you are a respected figure in Guatemalan correctional system. Stop. Would like to visit for interview. Stop. Please advise.
So you're here for an interview?
Yes, but not with you.
Max noticed the whiskey bottle on his desk.
Is that McAllen?
No.
He stows the bottle in a desk drawer.
Ramon, you might return to your duties elsewhere.
Ramon heads off for the door.
Deja el cigarro.
Ramon places a lit cigar on Hidalgo's desk and then exits.
It seems we've gotten off to a bad start.
If you're not here to interview me, then who do you expect to interview?
His name is Miguel Francisco.
You had come here to see a prisoner? You did not say so in your telegram.
They charge by the word.
You embarrass me.
I'm sorry. That wasn't my intention.
Why do you want to interview Francisco?
I need his help for a story I'm writing.
What kind of story?
I'd be happy to send you a copy when it's published.
Hidalgo steps to his filing cabinet. He removes a manila folder and brings it back to his desk.
In your telegram, if your telegram had been more explicit, I could have spared you your long journey. It would not be possible for you to interview Senor Francisco.
Why not?
Our regulation states that prisoners may not receive female visitors. Women have a tendency to inflame passions and disturb the tranquility of our environment.
Oh, don't worry. I promise I won't inflame any passion.
That is generous of you. Nevertheless, we cannot make any exceptions. Even if you were able to meet Senor Francisco, he will not be helpful to you. Ramon has tried to engage him in various topics, but he does not respond to questions.
He's probably just shy. Maybe I can bring him out of his shell.
If he will not talk to us, then he will not talk to you. Ramon is very good at conversations.
That kind of conversation is against the Geneva Convention.
You mean torture? No. Such barbarity does not happen, does not occur under my supervision.
To be frank, I'm not interested in what happens under your supervision.
Then what is your interest?
Max hands a photo to Hidalgo.
This picture was taken about 30 years ago. That's Francisco on the left. Do you recognize the guy in the middle? That's Harry Houdini. He was the world's greatest magician.
I am aware of Houdini.
Of course you are. The three most recognized names in the world are Jesus Christ, Sherlock Holmes, and Harry Houdini. He might be the most famous man in history.
And the most famous woman is Carmen Miranda. Why does this matter to you?
Francisco was Houdini's apprentice.
Francisco is Guatemalan. Based on his accent, I would say he was born less than 40 kilometers from here. His parents were most likely peasants. How would such a person come to work with Harry Houdini?
Houdini was born in Budapest. His real name was Eric Weiss. If a Hungarian Jew can become an American hero, then a Guatemalan peasant can end up working for him.
I still don't understand why you care about this.
Houdini trusted only a handful of people. His wife, his brother, and a couple of his assistants. Francisco is the only one who is still alive. If I can get him to tell me the secrets of Houdini's act, it's going to sell a lot of magazines.
When did Houdini die?
1926.
That's ancient history. Today we live in the atomic age. A single bomb can destroy an entire city. To pull a rabbit from a hat is not so amazing.
Houdini didn't mess around with rabbits. He made an elephant disappear.
But you see my point. In the modern world, there's no place for mystery.
You're right. You're right. People aren't satisfied with an illusion anymore. They want to know how it's done. With Francisco's help, I'm going to tell them.
How do you know where to find Senor Francisco?
I'm a journalist. It's what I do.
You're good at your job. I am also good at my job, which is why I cannot permit your interview.
No female visitors?
Correct.
Maybe I'm not a visitor. What if I were a prisoner?
We do not have lady prisoners at Penales Santos.
Is that a regulation?
No, it's simply understood.
Would your understanding be different if there were 500 American dollars in my bag?
We're now off the record.
I have another $1,000 at the hotel.
Are you stating a fact or are you proposing a transaction?
I'm asking you to enforce the law. What's the sentence for attempted bribery?
A first offense, 2 hours.
I need more time to earn his trust. One day, just me and him. He won't open up to me if your friend Ramon is watching.
You want me to leave you alone with a criminal?
He's an old man. I can take care of myself.
Max hands a roll of cash to Hidalgo.
The rest when I'm done.
When you write your story, you will not identify Francisco by name, and you will not disclose where you found him.
Agreed.
We have a deal. I must refuse your bribe, but I will keep it as evidence.
He stows the cash in his desk drawer and picks up the telephone.
Dile a Ramon que venga.
He hangs up.
I know you're here to learn about Houdini, but that does not preclude you from interviewing me as well. You know, you might find me to be fascinating.
I suppose anything's possible. Actually, I do have a question for you. How did Francisco end up here?
He was arrested at a bus station nearby. This was the most convenient place to hold him.
But why was he arrested?
I'm not free to discuss details of his case.
I know you're not free. That's why I'm paying you $1,500.
¿Tiene Miguel Francisco un compañero de celda?
No, Ortega fue transferido el martes pasado.
As you know, I do not approve of isolation. The psychological effect is very harmful. Fortunately, Ms. Whitman has offered to spend the day with Señor Francisco. Explicaré más tarde.
If you want a mugshot, my left side is better. Do I get a uniform?
We can forego the usual formalities. However, Ramon will need to perform a brief physical examination before you enter the cell block. I hope that that's not a problem.
If it becomes a problem, he'll be the first to know.
Do you plan to transcribe your talk with Francisco? My secretary can type your notes.
I'm not going to take notes. He'll say more if he forgets who he's talking to.
In a place like this, someone like you is not easy to forget.
By next week, you won't remember I was ever here.
We might grow fun of you. What if we decide to keep you?
My editor knows where I am. If I'm not at my desk on Monday, he'll miss me terribly.
I was being facetious, of course. You may leave whenever you wish. My only hope is that you enjoy yourself while you're here.
Thanks. I'll try to make the most of it.
Lights out. Scene 3, a prison cell. There is a door with a vertical iron bars and a window about 10 feet off the floor. The cell is furnished with a stool and 2 narrow beds.
Do you have a cigarette? I suppose it's considered bad form to borrow a smoke on your first day. I've always wanted to know, do you guys really pay for everything with cigarettes? Or is that just in the movies? You look like you want to be left alone. I know how you feel. I had a roommate who never stopped talking, drove me crazy, blah, 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 blah. I'm pretty sure you understand English. But I can try Spanish if you'd like. Mi nombre es Max Whitman. Soy periodoncista americana. La oportunidad de conocerte es muy excitante.
Stop.
What's wrong?
You're doing to Spanish what Franco is doing to Spain.
Francisco stands and peers up the window. He then pushes his bed across the floor.
Can I help you with something?
Get off the bed.
Francisco positions his bed directly beneath the window.
Get off.
She moves away from the stool, which Francisco then places on top of his bed.
What are you doing?
I want to feel the sun on my face.
Francisco steps onto the bed and carefully climbs atop the stool. Grabbing the window with both hands, he looks toward the sky. He enjoys a peaceful moment.
Señor Francisco, I did not remember you being so tall. We're playing volleyball here in the courtyard. A man of your height will be an asset for his team.
Francisco dismounts the stool and hops to the floor.
I trust you're enjoying yourself, Miss Whitman.
You have a lovely prison.
Please tell your friends word of mouth is the best form of advertising.
Could I trouble you for a cigarette?
Smoking is forbidden in the cell block, but if there's anything else you need, please do not hesitate to ask.
My name is Max Whitman. I write for Life magazine.
Life is a big topic for a magazine. You would have an easier job at Field and Stream.
I'm working on a piece about Harry Houdini. Want to know the secrets behind his most famous tricks? How he walked through a brick wall, how he escaped from Murderer's Row, how he made an elephant disappear. You're the only one left who can tell me. His wife's gone, his brother's gone, all his assistants are gone, except for you.
One other's still alive.
Who is he?
Not he, she.
Do you think she would talk to me?
No.
Why not?
She's an elephant.
I'm glad I amuse you.
You're not amusing. You're depressing.
Me? I'm the depressing one?
You call yourself a journalist. You travel to a country where people are killed by their own government every day, but your only concern is a magician who died 30 years ago from appendicitis. That is depressing.
We do stories on foreign affairs all the time. Nobody looks at them. Most Americans couldn't find Guatemala on a map.
Most Americans could not find America on a map.
When I got the idea for the Houdini story, I looked through a bunch of old publicity photos. I kept noticing the same face in the background. It was you. After a while, I realized that I had seen you before, on stage.
You're too young to have seen a performance by Houdini.
It wasn't his show. It was yours. It was my 9th birthday. My mother couldn't afford to throw me a party, so she took me to a vaudeville show. There was a juggler and a ventriloquist and a dog who jumped rope. You were the last act. I guess you asked for a volunteer from the audience because I wound up on the stage. You gave me a penny and told me to squeeze it. Then you said some magical words, and when I opened my hand, there was a silver dollar. Before I went back to my seat, you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I said I was going to get married and have babies. You said, what else? I didn't know there was supposed to be anything else, so I stood there like an idiot. Everybody started laughing at me. Just as I was about to burst into tears, you whispered in my ear, if you can turn a penny into a dollar, then whatever you dream is possible.
Did my wisdom inspire you?
Not really. I got married when I was 19. It only lasted a couple of years. After that, I was lost for a while. One day, I was waiting tables, and the little girl was eating lunch by herself. Her check came to 75 cents, but all she had was a quarter. I felt sorry for her, so I told her to keep it. But then I realized it wasn't a quarter. It was a silver dollar. I hadn't seen one in years. It made me remember what you said. Whatever you dream is possible.
Well, now that you're grown, I can tell you the truth. Most of what you dream is impossible, and the rest will disappoint you.
I dreamed of working for Life magazine. I started in the mailroom, and 4 years later, I got my own byline. Now I have a chance to have the last word on Houdini before the truth is lost to history. I need your help.
If you tell me what you're planning to write, I will tell you whether you're correct.
That's a start.
But you must do something in return.
What do you want?
Write about me when I'm gone.
You mean like a biography?
Just a few pages. My story is all I will leave behind.
I promised Hidalgo I wouldn't print your name.
Well, you can use my stage name.
Okay. What do you want me to write?
I was born near Puerto Barrios on the eastern coast of Guatemala. My mother did not survive giving birth. My father never said he blamed me, but I never knew for sure because he hardly said anything at all. He was a dock worker for La Frutera, which was our name for the United Fruit Company of Boston, Massachusetts. When I was old enough, I worked alongside my father loading crates of bananas onto boats. Every time a boat came back from America, the crew brought a new movie for us to watch on Sunday afternoon. The first movie I ever saw was about a newspaper reporter who saves his girlfriend from kidnappers. As the images flickered on the wall, I knew the actors were not present in the room with us, but I wondered whether they could see me on a big wall somewhere far away, just as I could see them. The star of that movie was Harry Houdini. By the time I was 16, I stopped going to the movies and I spent my Sundays trying to meet girls. This was difficult because the girls spent Sunday mornings in church and they worried about hell for the rest of the day. The only one not worried was Rosa. They call her Ciclope because her hair was always on her left side of her face, covering her eye. One day I asked her why she wore the hair that way, and she said that only half the world is beautiful, and she did not want to see the rest. It made no sense, but I did not care. After 7 Sundays with Rosa, she told me she was pregnant. I asked her to marry me, as it was my obligation. I prayed she would say no. Then when she said no, I felt this pain in my stomach that I later understood to be love. Rosa raised the boy with her parents. I worked long hours so that I could afford to help them. But soon the dock workers went on strike. The police always took the side of La Frutera. Some of us were arrested to make an example, including my father. He died in jail. I wanted to mourn, but all I felt was pity. That was the moment when I decided to leave Guatemala. I did not ask Rosa to come with me because she would have said no, and facing her would have stopped me from leaving. I knew some of the men that work on the ships, so I was able to stow away on a voyage to New York. As we approached the great city, my eyes filled with tears. I had reached the land of opportunity. Never again I would have to work. loading bananas onto a boat. In less than a week, I got my first job in America. Unloading bananas from a boat. It was even worse than home. But I learned English by listening to the stevedores, and I tried to read the newspaper every day. One morning, the front page showed a familiar face. Houdini was making a new movie in a place called Niagara Falls. I resolved that I would meet him and he could finally see me, just as I saw him on that movie screen in Puerto Barrios. I arrived at Niagara Falls after 2 days on a bus. When I found the film crew, they were shooting a scene in which Houdini rescues his girlfriend from a runaway canoe. The water was rough, and the actress refused to get into the boat because she could not swim. The director started to panic. "We must shoot before sundown! Get a dummy!" I had never heard this word, but I sensed an opportunity. And with my bravest voice, I proclaimed, "I am a dummy." Somebody put a wig on my head and pushed me into the canoe. The director yelled, "Action!" But at the time he yelled, "Cut," I had capsized and narrowly drowned. It was the happiest day of my life. When the movie wrapped, Houdini let me join his magic troupe. First as a ballet, then as a stagehand. They paid very little, but for me, it seemed like a fortune. For Christmas, every man in the company received a bespoke wool suit tailored from Savile Row. I said, "Thank you, Mr. Houdini." He said, "Not Mr., not Harry, just Houdini." This was a quirk of his. But at the time, I was confused. I said, "Thank you, senor. I have never seen a more elegant suit, but I have no occasion to wear it." He said, "If you have the suit, the occasion will find you." I worked for Houdini until he died. By then, the art of magic had become my life, and I tried to erase all memory of what came before. The one thing I could not forget was Rosa. On the first Sunday of each new year, I sent her a package with some money and a few words of affection. She never wrote back.
Señor Hidalgo wants to see Miss Whitman.
Lights out. Scene 4. Hidalgo presides at his desk. Max sits across from him. Next to the desk is a cart with 2 plates of food, each covered by a silver cloth.
I thought you may be hungry, so I asked Javier to prepare lunch.
Who's Javier?
Our head chef. He's trained at the finest restaurants in Guatemala.
What made him decide to work at a prison?
The decision was not his to make. Javier was impetuous in his younger days, and he could not tolerate criticism. One night, a table of 2 sent back their entrees. They did not live to see the dessert.
That's horrible.
Indeed, but their loss was our gain.
Hidalgo lifts the covers of the plates to reveal the food.
Smells delicious.
It is a traditional stew of chicken with tomato and pumpkin seeds. We call it pepián de pollo. I'll give you the recipe before you leave.
Thanks, but I've never cooked a thing in my life.
Not even when you were married.
I preferred to eat out, especially when my husband was eating at home.
Your marriage was not a happy one.
No, but it had a happy ending. When it ended, I was happy.
I think you're teasing me.
This food looks wonderful, but I was hoping I get a chance to eat with the other prisoners.
No, your presence in the cafeteria will cause a commotion. This is more intimate.
Are you intimate with all your inmates?
Please, do not misunderstand. I mean only to be a good host.
I appreciate your hospitality.
My work here is rewarding, but it does not engage all my faculties. There's rarely an opportunity for an intelligent discussion.
Is there something you'd like to discuss intelligently?
You remind me of the ladies I met in graduate school. I studied at Columbia, the university, not the country.
I studied at Lincoln, the high school, not the tunnel. What did you think of New York?
At first I was homesick, but soon I fell in love with Carnegie Hall and Central Park. I wish I could have stayed longer.
How would you end up in the prison racket?
My father wanted me to become a military officer. When I returned from New York, I trained in the army, but the life did not suit me. I'm a pacifist at heart. In this job, I can be more useful.
And it pays well, at least unofficially.
Do not judge my character by our transaction. A man can be flexible without being corrupt. But while we're in the subject, you mentioned that you have left some money at your hotel. Sadly, theft is a serious problem in Guatemala. I did not want you to worry, so I sent Ramon to investigate.
I'm not worried. The money's in the hotel safe.
At that particular hotel, safe is a relative term. But there's no cause for concern. Your funds are now secure with me.
That's a relief.
Ramon also checked the room for signs of intrusion. Everything was in order, but he noticed some papers inside your luggage.
Hidalgo lifted a stack of papers onto his desk.
That's my research.
You have been diligent. Some of these are in Spanish. You were able to understand them?
I got the gist.
Last night at Teatro del Arte, we witnessed a memorable performance by Don Misterioso, a magician widely praised for his skills and imagination. For nearly 2 hours, he entranced the audience with illusions and of escalating grandeur. The highlight was a remarkable piece of wizardry called La Doble Captura de Balas, the double bullet catch, which left our hearts racing. I assume that Don Misterioso is an alias for our friend, Señor Francisco.
It's possible.
And what else have you learned about him?
He was born in Guatemala, like you said. He moved to America in his late teens and convinced Houdini to give him a job. When Houdini died, Francisco developed his own act and spent most of his career on the road. He came back here a little over a year ago.
Why did he return to Guatemala?
I haven't figured that out. I'd have a better idea if I knew why he was arrested.
In the course of your research, have you come across the name Domingo Garcia?
I don't think so.
He was a photographer for one of our local newspapers. About 2 months ago, he paid a visit to Señor Francisco. It did not appear to be the first meeting. When Francisco was arrested, we found a set of pictures in his suitcase.
Hidalgo opens a manila folder on his desk and finds a powder blue envelope.
We believe Domingo Garcia asked him to deliver these pictures to someone in Guatemala City. The matter is of great interest for the committee.
What committee?
The CNDC. In English, National Committee for Defense Against Communism.
They think Francisco is a communist?
They believe everyone is a communist until proven otherwise. Francisco will be transferred to their custody next week.
Hidalgo placed the blue envelope back in the manila folder and locks the folder in his filing cabinet.
If he won't talk to you, why would he talk to the committee?
They will make it impossible for him to remain silent.
You said that kind of thing doesn't happen here.
It did not happen under my supervision. My approach to interrogation is enlightenment, but what happens outside the prison is beyond my control. The committee is a higher authority.
If they're higher, they should be even more enlightened.
Well, the cream does not always rise to the top.
So, you're the cream?
I am half and half. In political matters, I avoid taking sides.
That's very diplomatic. When the committee is done talking to Francisco, will they send him back here?
No.
They'll let him go?
No.
I guess I should talk to him while I have the chance. If you don't mind, I'll take a rain check on the chicken.
Of course, but allow me to offer a gentle suggestion. Do not become attached to Señor Francisco. His prospects for the future are limited.
Lights out. Scene 5, Francisco's cell.
I have a theory about the vanishing elephant. Okay, if you really want to know, I'll tell you. Houdini's assistants push a circus wagon onto the stage. There's a round window on the front end, and the back end has 2 open doors. The assistants rotate the wagon 360 degrees so that we can see it's empty. We can also see underneath the wagon because the wheels are 3 feet high. An animal trainer brings the elephant on stage and guides it into the back of the wagon. Houdini then closes the doors and pulls a curtain over the window at the other end. When he steps in front of the wagon to address the audience, 2 mirrors rise up through the stage, joining at a right angle behind Houdini's legs. Nobody notices the mirrors because they reflect a velvet backdrop in the wings of the theater, which matches the backdrop behind the stage. While Houdini does his patter, the elephant is lowered through a trapdoor. Then the mirrors are quickly pulled back down, and the assistants give the wagon a quarter turn. They open the doors in back. Houdini draws the curtain in front, and the audience can see right through the empty wagon. Voila, the elephant is gone. Well?
You're correct about 3 things. There was a wagon, there was an elephant, and there was Houdini. The rest is completely wrong.
Oh, come on.
The theater was too wide to use mirror. Half the audience would have seen their own reflection. Besides, there was not enough space below the stage for an elephant.
Then how did he do it?
If I told you the truth, you would be disappointed.
Try me. I'm a good listener.
Sometimes it is good to listen, and sometimes it is better to hear nothing.
What's that supposed to mean?
When Houdini died, his brother took over the touring company. He offered me a job, but I said no. I wanted to be on my own. I wanted to be my own boss. At the time, I was not confident speaking English. So I went to Mexico to gain experience on stage. The first few months were difficult. Nobody would hire me to perform, and I had to pawn most of my belongings. One night, during a violent storm, I ducked into a concert hall for shelter. A restless crowd was waiting for the performance of Anna Pavlova, the great Russian ballerina, whose arrival was delayed by the weather. I happened to know the promoter of the show because I begged him for work a few days earlier. And when he saw me in the lobby, he asked me whether I could do some tricks to pacify the audience. I quickly agreed, but I did not have any props with me, not even a deck of cards. So I hurried to the costume shop in the back of the theater, hoping to find something I could use. By some miracle, there was an old set of Chinese linking rings that another magician has left behind. I ran onto the stage and performed with the rings, telling jokes about myself to win sympathy from the crowd. The jokes were terrible, but the people were baffled by my sleight of hand, and they gave me a standing ovation. After my final bow, I returned to my dressing room, and soon there was a knock on the door. It was a girl with short black hair, perhaps 18 years old. I invited her to enter. She walked towards me, closer and closer, and then she walked past me. Without a word, she took the Chinese rings from my dressing table and proceeded to perform my entire act in front of me. When she finished, she looked to me for approval, but I was filled with anger. I mean, this girl has mastered my routine after seeing it once. I made a rude gesture and told her to leave. Moments later, I regretted my childish behavior, so I ran after her. I hurried outside, and I saw the girl walking across the street, so I started screaming, "Please wait, señorita, forgive me." She kept walking. I continued to shout, and as I chased after her, when I grabbed her arm, she turned to me and looked at me with surprise. She had not heard me yelling because she was deaf. Now I understood how she learned my act. When the rest of the audience was groaning at my jokes, her eyes were focused on my hands. And that is why she was not fooled.
Did you apologize to her?
No, I made her my assistant.
When I saw your show, I don't think you had a girl with you.
No, she left me long before then. Her name was Florencia.
That's pretty.
Florencia Luisa de Santa Cruz Rodríguez Villanueva de Arroyo y Ruiz.
It must have taken a week to write her a check.
Oh, she preferred cash. When I started to make money, I paid her well.
How come she left?
She did not want to be my assistant. She wanted to be my wife. For a while, I pretended to share her feelings because she was a natural performer and I was desperate to keep her in my act. When I finally admitted that I could not fall in love with her, she was gone the next morning.
Why couldn't you fall in love with her?
I had already fallen for Rosa. I could not fall any further.
Hidalgo told me you're going to be transferred next week.
Hmm.
You know about the committee? Have you thought about trying to get out of here the old-fashioned way? Houdini must have taught you a thing or two.
You mean escape? How do you propose I begin?
Well, I'm sure you know how to pick a lock.
Pick a lock. To pick a lock, you need a pick. But how do you smuggle a pick into prison? Well, there are several methods. You can attach a pick to your hand with a dab of wax, and after the guards examine your scalp, you can casually run your fingers over your head, leaving the pick inside your hair while your hands are inspected. Or perhaps the guards does not notice that you have 11 fingers, one of which contains a pick in its hollow center. If you are even more skilled, you can suspend the pick in your throat using only the muscles of your neck. These are all good options if you happen to carry a pick of the correct shape and size at the moment the police arrest you. Or, wait, let's assume you have a pick. Once you unlock the cell door, you can walk down the corridor where two guards are standing with rifles. If both guards happen to be asleep at the same time, you can sneak past them and walk another 100 yards, where 4 more guards are stationed behind an iron gate. Beyond the gate is a courtyard with 30-foot walls patrolled by a team of snipers. Their job is usually quite boring, so they enjoy any opportunity to practice their aim. And if you're somehow able to get past the guards and the gate and the wall and the guns, then you will gain your freedom until you're recaptured, which is no less certain than death itself.
What about underground?
You mean dig? Yes. That is a brilliant idea. It would be even more brilliant if I happened to be hiding a shovel up my ass.
I'm sure somebody has tried digging out of here.
Oh, I heard a story from another prisoner, but it's too strange to be true.
What kind of story?
Many years ago, 2 brothers robbed an orphanage. Nobody remembers their names, so I will call them Pepe and Paco. The police captured Pepe and sent him to Penal de Santos. Paco remained at large, but the two brothers stayed in contact with a series of letters written in code. Through these letters, Pepe provided information that allowed Paco to recreate a blueprint of the prison. Paco then found the meadow several kilometers away, and he started digging a tunnel to the cell where Pepe was confined. The only problem was that Paco had drafted the blueprint upside down so that the north was south and the south was north. When he finally dug to the surface, Paco raised his head through the floor, expecting to see Pepe in his cell, but instead there was a total darkness. Paco heard a few phrases in Latin and correctly surmised that he was in prison, in the prison chapel for Sunday Mass. What he failed to surmise is that his head was under the cassock of the priest, who was not wearing underwear. I mean, I'm told this is not uncommon in the warmest days of summer. When Paco lit a match to view his surroundings, he saw the naked manhood of the Father Ignacio, and believed it was the index finger of God pointing down in condemnation. Paco was terrified and quickly retreated through the tunnel. The next day, he returned the stolen money to the orphanage and decided to surrender. But on his way to the police station, he was struck by a streetcar and died instantly. His brother Pepe was released on parole 2 weeks later.
Somebody actually told you that story?
In the version I heard, the chapel was empty when Paco arrived. The character of the Father Ignacio is my own embellishment.
But if the rest is true, there might still be a tunnel that runs below the chapel.
Only a fool would believe that. The chapel is a place of false hope.
How did you meet Domingo Garcia? He asked you to deliver a set of photographs. Why did he choose you?
Hidalgo appears in the window.
Hola, how is everyone this evening?
Care to join us for cocktails?
Our saltbook is dry, just like your humor. But I need to have a word with Senor Francisco. I will be right down there. Don't go anywhere.
Hidalgo walks away.
Can't figure him out.
What is there to figure?
Surface, he seemed like a pompous jerk, but I think there's another layer underneath.
A shit sandwich has 3 layers. I would not eat it for lunch.
Were you talking about me? My ears are burning.
Si pudiera prenderle fuego a algo, comenzaría con otra cosa menos con sus oídos.
I make every effort to be courteous, and you respond with contempt. But the unkindest cut is that you conceal your special talent from me. How could I have known that I was in the presence of a master illusionist? If it were not for Miss Whitman, I will never have discovered my ignorance.
Your ignorance is vast. You would have found it eventually.
I take no offense at your humor because you cannot help yourself. Even in the darkest hour, you feel compelled to entertain. And that is what I came here to discuss. Don Misterioso, you're going to present an evening of magic here at Penal de Santos before an audience of your fellow prisoners.
Oh, is that an invitation or a demand?
It depends on your answer.
The answer is no.
For what reason?
Even if I was willing to perform, it would be impossible. I have none of my props.
An artist of your caliber does not need any props. The essential tool is your knowledge. You must possess so many secrets.
Do you want to know the secret of the vanishing elephant. The secret is that you cannot do the trick without an elephant. I cannot perform without props.
Which I'll obtain whatever you need.
Obtain another magician.
Do not be selfish. Think of the other prisoners. I am powerless to grant them their freedom, but you have the ability to free their spirit with a few minutes of pleasure. Would you deny them such consolation? You are stubborn, Francisco.
Y tú eres un cerote.
What did he just call you?
It's a vile word that no decent woman should hear.
That might come in handy. How do you spell it?
Your comrades will disapprove of such vulgarity. It reflects badly on their cause.
Domingo García no es comunista, es héroe.
Domingo García está muerto. Ya. Lo encontraron un poco después de su arresto. Estaba detenido en Zacapa cuando falleció. No querían que le dijera, pero creo que tiene derecho a saberlo.
I'm sorry about your comrade.
Domingo Garcia was not my comrade.
I mean, I didn't mean comrade pejoratively. I just meant colleague.
Domingo Garcia was not my colleague. He was my son.
Lights out. Scene 6, Francisco's cell, nighttime.
I perform in towns across Mexico, then Texas and California, and the vaudeville circuits. Some years work better than others, but every January I sent Rosa a package with some money. After 29 years and 29 packages, I finally received a response in the mail. It was $100 wrapped in a note. My mother is dead. There was a blank space where a signature should have been. Domingo wanted me to feel his absence, just as he had felt mine. When I returned to Guatemala, the country was turning inside out. The people had elected a reformer named Jacobo Arbenz, who gave farmland to the poor by taking vacant fields from the largest states. The United Fruit Company called this communism. So did the CIA. The Guatemalan army did not want to antagonize our friends of the North, so they forced President Arbenz into exile. His replacement was selected by the American ambassador, so to avoid the hazards of a popular vote. None of this mattered to me at the time, as my only interest was to find Domingo. He was living in Puerto Barrios, near the house where he was born. And when I spoke to him for the first time, my shame was overwhelming. I failed you. Let me atone. Instead of anger, the anger that I expected, he responded without emotion. If I need you, I will find you. I had nowhere else to go. So I remained in Puerto Barrios. I spent most of my time and my days in a cafe where Rosa used to work. But my presence was barely noticed. That's because at this time is when people started to disappear. They went to work or school or church. They did not come home. Most of them happened to be critics of the new government. Whenever a body was found, the safest course of action was to ignore it, because anyone who took interest might be next, might disappear. But Domingo did not ignore what he saw. He took photographs. He kept them to himself, knowing that he could never publish them, because if he published them, the local authorities would become aware of his work. Just before Domingo went into hiding, he came to see me. He wanted to give his photos to a trusted friend, a reporter in Guate, who could wire them around and pass them abroad. But that time, Domingo wasn't able to travel without being detained. So he asked me to deliver the negatives. I was grateful for the confidence, and then I asked him why he had chosen me for such an important job. And he said that he knew other men who were capable, but he could not put them at risk because they had families who needed them. My qualification was that I mattered to no one. He would have chosen differently if he knew I would fail him again.
Your driver is waiting.
Hidalgo said I could stay for a whole day.
The day is over.
A day is 24 hours. We're barely halfway there. Go ask Hidalgo.
He's already at home. You must return to the hotel now.
If I leave here, I'm not going to my hotel. I'm going to the American Embassy to report a theft of $1,500. You better call your boss to make sure that's what he wants. What happened to Domingo isn't your fault. There's nothing you could have done.
Nothing is what I have always done.
Apaguen las luces.
Do you think he made another set of negatives? If you have any idea where they would be, I'll look for them.
For what purpose?
I can deliver them for you. What's the name of Domingo's friend? You don't trust me.
You're a journalist, so I trust you to publish my story. You're an American, so I have no reason to trust you for more.
You're right. You don't have a reason. But I'll give you a damn good reason if you shut up and listen.
Lights out. End of Act 1. Act 2. Scene 1. Francisco's cell. The next morning. Standing just outside the cell door, Ramon finds a deck of playing cards.
Choose your card. You can hear me. Choose.
Do we really have to do this?
Yes, we really have to.
Max takes a card.
Bueno, remember the card in your mind. Do not show me.
Max looks at the card and gives it back.
I shuffle completely, see? Now choose in your head a number between 5 and 10. Any number, the choice is yours.
5.
No, bigger than 5, smaller than 10.
6.
Bigger than 6.
7.
Good, you choose number 7. Now I count.
Removing cards from the top of the deck.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here's your card.
He shows the 7th card.
Is not your card?
No.
Ramon returns the 7th card to the top of the deck.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
He shows the 7th card.
Right. Good job.
Max turns away.
Don Misterioso, now you make a tricks for us. Don Misterioso.
Ramon unlocks the cell door and enters. He bangs a billy club against Francisco's bed until Francisco stands up. Francisco takes a deck of cards from Ramon, shuffles them, and fans them face down.
Touch a card.
Ramon touches one of the cards. Francisco removes it from the deck and shows it to Ramon.
9 of diamonds. They will try to escape. Guard them closely.
Ramon reaches for the card.
No. Abre la boca.
Francisco opens his mouth wide to demonstrate. When Ramon mimics him, Francisco inserts the end of the card into Ramon's mouth.
Now close. Don't move until I tell you.
As Ramon stands frozen, Francisco sits down on the floor across from Max. He deals 10 cards to her and 10 more to himself.
Is this a part of the trick?
No. This is gin rummy.
They start to play in gin.
Did you ever play cards with Houdini?
Only once. He was a sore loser.
You beat the world's greatest magician in a card game?
He was not the world's greatest magician.
What do you mean?
Houdini was a genius at 2 things: the art of escape and the business of self-promotion. As an illusionist, he was no more than competent.
Ramon still holds the card between his teeth.
Have your diamonds tried to escape?
Ramon shakes his head. Francisco kneels down and looks up the face of the card that Ramon is bidding.
You're doing well.
Francisco returns to the gin game with Max.
Who was a better magician than Houdini?
The best I saw with my own eyes was Howard Thurston. I mean, his showmanship was unrivaled. But if you asked Thurston himself, he would have said that Herman was the best of all time.
Herman who?
The question is not Herman who. The question is which Herman. The answer is Alexander Herman, who was known throughout the world as Herman the Great. When Alexander died, his nephew Leon took on the name Herman the Great, but in reality, he was just so-so. Then Leon died, and the last Herman standing was Alexander's widow, Adelaide Herman. She performed for another 25 years and became known as the Queen of Magic.
Nobody remembers any of these people, any of those people. Everybody knows Houdini.
That was his best trick. He made himself so famous that he became immortal.
Still pledging gin, Francisco placed a card on the discard pile. He then rearranged the cards in his hand and spread them on the floor face up.
Wait, you didn't draw.
Francisco walks over to Ramon.
9 of diamonds.
Ramon nods.
Are you sure?
Ramon removes the card from his mouth and discovers that it's now 2 separate cards. Francisco looks at them.
4 of diamonds. 3 of diamonds.
Francisco reaches into Ramon's skirt pocket and removes a 3rd card, the 2 of diamonds.
And 2 more diamonds makes 9. They tried to escape, but they did not get far.
Francisco drops the 2 of diamonds next to the rest of his cards on the floor.
Gin.
Teach me how.
You are not ready for that trick. I will teach you something easy. To begin, we will need a tall glass of water.
For what?
For drinking. I'm thirsty.
You teach me a trick, then I bring you water.
Francisco gathers the cards from the floor, shuffles them, and holds the deck face down in his palm.
The top card will be yours. The next will be mine.
With his thumb, Francisco flips the top card so that it's rest face up on top of the deck.
The Ace of Spades.
Francisco flips the card face down, slides it off the deck, and presses it against Ramon's forehead.
Hold it there Now my turn.
Francisco takes the next card from the deck and flips it face up.
The deck is playing a joke on us. My card is the Queen of Hearts, which is the symbol of love. But I am an old man, and old men think of nothing but death. The Ace of Spades is the symbol of death, but you're a young man, and young men think of nothing but love. Fortunately, there is a way to change our cards using only the power of the mind. If you think very hard about the Queen, and I think very hard about the Ace, we can make them trade places.
Francisco flips his queen face down, slices it off the deck, and presses it against his forehead.
Think about the Queen. Are you thinking hard?
Sí.
Really? You have kind of a blank expression.
There. Did you feel it?
Francisco lowers the card from his forehead and shows Ramon's that it's the Ace of Spades. Ramon looks at his own card, which is now the Queen of Hearts.
Teach me how.
Francisco takes the queen back from Ramon's and drops it face down on top of the deck, together with the ace.
Watch closely. First, I show you the top card, the ace.
Francisco shows it to Ramon and then flips it face down.
But that is a lie. The top card is the queen. The ace is the second.
He flips the top card face up. It's the queen, which he removes from the deck. He then flips the next card, which is the ace. Ramon is perplexed. Francisco retains the cards face down on top of the deck.
Here is the method. I pretend to flip one card, but instead I flip two. This is called a double lift.
Francisco demonstrates.
Then I flip both cards down. I remove only the top card, which is the queen.
Hands the card to Ramon.
Now the top card is the ace, but with a double lift, there is another queen.
Wait, how can you both have the Queen of Hearts?
He found these cards in my suitcase. My deck has double of the Queen of Hearts.
Isn't that cheating?
Of course it's cheating. If you want to do magic, you either cheat or you break the laws of physics. I prefer the easy way.
Ramon takes the deck of the cards.
Now I will try.
After you bring me water.
He's taken a shine to you. Maybe he can help you get out of here.
He's too much a coward to risk punishment.
There'd be a way. If Houdini could make an elephant disappear.
Forget the elephant. I'm not going to tell you.
Well, then tell me about the double bullet catch.
How do you know about La Doble?
I read it was your best trick.
It was not just a trick. It was my masterpiece.
A lot of magicians have done a bullet catch. What was different about yours?
2 soldiers joined me on stage. From the audience, I summon a volunteer who marks his initials on a pair of bullets. As the soldiers load their rifles, my assistant binds me in a straitjacket and then locks me inside a tall black cabinet. A few yards away, there is a white cabinet of equal size. The first soldier fires at the black cabinet, and his companion fires at the white cabinet. After a dramatic pause, I emerge from the white cabinet, free of the straitjacket, with the 2 marked bullets in my hand.
When did you perform this trick?
No, I have never performed it.
It was in the newspaper. I read the review. You wrote a phony review of your own show? So the double bullet catch is a lie?
Not a lie. A dream. Soon after I joined Houdini, I had a vision in my sleep. It was La Doble, just as I described it to you, except I was watching from the last row of the theater, mystified by what I saw. I became obsessed by this vision, and I devised a method to perform it myself. Then I summoned the courage to ask Houdini whether I could present La Doble as his opening act. He refused. One of his friends had died performing a bullet catch in London, and Houdini believed the danger was too great, so he made me swear never to attempt La Doble in public.
So Houdini stopped you from doing your masterpiece?
He worried for my safety.
Maybe he didn't want you to steal his spotlight.
Perhaps. But I had no choice. He was my boss.
He's been dead for 30 years.
When you say it like that, it sounds stupid.
How come you didn't come back to Guatemala when you were younger?
I was afraid to see what I had left behind.
You could have done your act here.
Guatemala does not need magic.
What does it need?
Men who are brave enough to face reality. If I had been more like Domingo, I would not have wasted my life on illusions.
If you'd been more like Domingo, you would have done your bullet catch.
Aquí está su agua.
Ramon takes a deck of cards from his pocket.
Come here, señora, I will amaze you. The top card is the ace.
He flips the cards again and hands the top card to Max, who holds it against her forehead.
Next is the queen.
He does another double lift and shows the card to Max.
Either she needs a shave or that's the king of clubs.
Ramon looks at the card, which is indeed a king. Max removes the other card from her forehead.
Can I ask you a question? Why are you so interested in card tricks?
For profit.
You're going to charge admission for this?
No, I will make bets. I guess your card you give me 20 quetzales.
So you want to take advantage of people?
I want to take money of people.
Magic is honest deception. What you're describing is robbery, not magic.
You can teach me both.
I have no time to teach. I need to rehearse.
For what?
The last and greatest performance of Don Misterioso.
Lights out. Scene 2. Hidalgo sits at his desk. Max stands facing him. Hovering nearby, Ramon takes notes with a pad and pencil.
1 canvas mail sack.
Yes.
1 straitjacket.
Yes.
2 pairs of handcuffs.
Yes.
3 ounces of black wax.
Yes.
2 muzzle loading rifles.
Excuse me?
They're for the guards. He's not going to touch them.
I will consider the request. Yeah. Does he require a costume?
He can wear his own suit, but he needs a makeup kit.
You mean cosmetics?
Don't worry, nothing too sexy.
I will inquire with my wife. Anything else?
Music. He wants something jaunty to play in the background.
What is jaunty?
Look it up. I almost forgot the most important part. He needs 2 big cabinets and a crate, all custom built. Do you have a wood shop?
Yeah, our men excel at carpentry. What are the dimensions?
I don't know. Francisco can tell you.
Ve a preguntarle.
Ramon exits.
You have been here longer than we planned, but I welcome you to stay for the performance if you have time.
Funny you should mention that. He asked me to be his assistant. I said no, until he finally promised to tell me about Houdini's elephant trick.
He's now open to compromise. That's good. But I must admit that I'm surprised by his decision to perform.
Maybe he got tired of sitting in his cell.
It almost made me nervous. Like, magicians always have something up their sleeves.
When is the show?
Tomorrow night.
That doesn't leave much time to get ready.
We cannot wait longer. On Saturday, the committee is sending a deputy to take custody of Francisco.
What if he's not here on Saturday?
Where else would he be?
You could release him for good behavior.
Penal de Santo, good behavior is expected, not rewarded.
Maybe he could sneak out the back door when nobody's looking.
You're proposing that I set him free?
Call it a prison break. Nobody would suspect anything. A few apples are bound to fall off the cart every now and then.
I do not lose apples.
What if I could get you another $1,500?
Francisco is not for sale.
You let me rent him for a day.
What you're now suggesting is different. I am obligated to produce him to the committee.
You know what's going to happen to him.
It is unfortunate, but my hands are tied.
Just because they're tied doesn't mean they're clean.
When I was appointed to this office, Guatemala was ruled by a tyrant. They call him the Napoleon of the tropics. Eventually, the people grew tired of him and we had a revolution. A few years later, there was a counter-revolution, and now we have another Napoleon. Through all these changes, my job has remained the same. I do not make the law. I do not decide which men have broken the law. The best I can do is to preserve their dignity while they're here.
The nice thing about having a dictator is that you never have to blame yourself for anything. Plus, you can go to bed early on election night.
When we want to know who will be running our country, we do not follow our elections. We follow yours.
I voted for Adlai Stevenson.
Nevertheless, you might ask yourself whether your own hands are clean.
Lights out. Scene 3. Francisco's cell. One of the bed is stuck on the other. Max stands on the top bed with a white sheet in her hands.
1, 2, 3.
Max raises the sheet above her head and quickly releases it. When it drops off the floor, Francisco is standing in her place and Max is nowhere to be seen. A few moments later, she crawls out from behind the beds.
You need to be faster.
I think I just sprained my entire body.
Get up. We must go again.
Can't we rest for a minute?
You may rest after 40 repetitions.
How many have we done so far?
2.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus will not help you. Magic is for pagans and heretics.
So my best friends are pagans.
You are a terrible assistant. You said you would do what I ask if I tell you about the elephant.
Yeah, and you haven't told me anything yet.
First, we must practice.
I just need a minute.
I had just joined the company when he performed the illusion for the last time. The animal trainer led the elephant on the stage, and Houdini directed them toward a giant circus wagon, nearly twice the normal size. On the front end of the wagon, there was an oval window covered by a curtain. On the back end was a pair of double doors. Each door had been carved to remove a half moon from its edge, so that a round opening remained when the doors were shut. The trainer led the elephant into the back of the wagon, and Houdini closed the doors behind them. Once they were inside, the trainer guided the animal to its left so that its body pressed against one side of the wagon. The trainer then lowered a black sheet over the elephant and himself. Meanwhile, a team of stagehands rotated the wagon 90 degrees so that the front end faced the audience. After a drum roll, Houdini drew the curtain from the front window. The middle section of the audience could now see straight through the wagon to the backdrop behind the stage. The audience on the left and right could not see into the wagon because of their viewing angle. But they assumed the wagon was empty when a few people in the middle started to clap. The applause then spread to the entire house. And that's how Houdini made an elephant disappear.
Wow, that's disappointing.
Congratulations. You have now been disillusioned.
Nobody realized the elephant was still inside the wagon?
Many in the crowd would have guessed the truth, but there was no way to be certain. So they had to make a choice. They could choose to believe that the elephant was still in the wagon, in which case they had overpaid for a third-rate sideshow, or they could choose to believe the wagon was empty, in which case they had just witnessed the greatest spectacle in magic history. When there is room for doubt, people believe what makes them feel good about themselves.
Your equipment is ready. You can rehearse for 2 hours this afternoon.
When can I examine the stage? I need to inspect every inch from above and below.
The stage will be assembled tonight before the performance.
No, everything must be in place before the rehearsal.
You will perform in the cafeteria. We cannot build the stage until the tables are removed after supper.
Then we must use a different location. Talk to Hidalgo.
I have total authority in this matter. You will perform in the cafeteria.
What if I refuse?
You should expect the worst.
The worst is coming to me sooner or later. I have no preference between sooner or later.
Is the stage really that important?
Yes, but there is something else. The cafeteria does not suit my needs.
Which means what?
There are only 2 rooms in the prison that are large enough to hold an audience. One is the cafeteria. The other is the chapel.
You said the chapel is a place of false hope.
A false hope is better than none.
Lights out. Scene 4, the prison chapel. Francisco and Hidalgo stands below a stained glass window. A few feet behind them, Ramon holds Francisco's suit on a hanger.
Todo está listo para esta noche. Cumple el escenario con tus requisitos.
¿Dónde está mi traje?
Ramon shows the suit to Francisco, who immediately drops the pants of his prison uniform and starts to unbutton his top.
Si quieres privacidad, puedes cambiarte en la sacristía cuando la señora salga.
Francisco strips down to his underwear. He puts on a dress shirt and his suit pants. As he starts to knot his bow tie, Max stands wearing a baggy prison uniform.
Doesn't fit.
There is no time for vanity. Show me.
She reluctantly removes the prison uniform to reveal what she's wearing underneath, the pink leotard that Ramon found in Francisco's suitcase in the opening scene.
Bellísima. You're a vision of beauty.
Shut up.
Francisco finishes dressing by putting on his suit jacket. Meanwhile, Ramon pushes a wooden crate to center stage. The crate is 3 feet high, 4 feet long, and 2 feet deep. On the floor next to it, Ramon leaves a red curtain on a brass rod.
Our first illusion is called metamorphosis. Houdini rose to fame when he performed his trick in 1895, and it remained part of his act for decades. As you can see, we have a box made of solid wood. My assistant will rotate the box.
Please.
Please, God, make sure she remembers her cue.
Max rotates the crate 360 degrees.
You may inspect the box. In the meantime, my wrists will be shackled.
Francisco put his arms behind his back and Ramon handcuffs him.
Next, I will be confined to a postal sack inside the box.
Francisco steps into a large canvas bag that lies at the bottom of the crate. Max pulls the sack up over his head and ties a string at the top. Francisco lowered himself into the crate, and Max closed the lid. She secures it with a padlock.
Play the music.
Ramon starts the music.
Stop!
Ramon stops music.
The music is terrible.
It is jaunty.
Let's get on with this.
Ramon restarts the music at a softer volume. Max takes the red curtain from the floor and climbs on top of the crate, holding the curtain in front of herself. She raises it over her head and then lowers it to show her face. After she repeats these moves a few times, the curtain falls to reveal that Francisco is standing alone atop the crate.
Applause is optional.
Francisco jumps down to the floor, removes a key from his pocket, and unlocks the padlock on the crate. When he lifts the lid, the mail sack stands upright. Francisco unties it to reveal Max, whose hands are cuffed behind her back. Ramon unlocks the handcuffs. Hidalgo stops the phonograph.
Bravo! You make a good team.
Max pushed the crate off stage. Meanwhile, Francisco noticed a flap of silk hanging from the sleeve of his jacket.
Is there a problem?
I cut my sleeve on a nail.
We can mend the jacket tonight.
It also needs to be cleaned.
Hidalgo motions to Ramon, who takes the jacket.
Momento.
Francisco reaches into the torn lining of the jacket sleeve. He pulls out a red handkerchief, which is attached to a blue handkerchief, which is attached to a yellow handkerchief, which is attached to a green handkerchief. He keeps pulling until he has removed a string of 20 colored handkerchiefs.
This must be laundered separately, hand washed in cold water.
Francisco wraps the handkerchiefs around Ramon's, who promptly exits.
What else do you have in store for us, Don Misterioso?
Max rolls 2 cabinets onto the stage, one black and one white. Each cabinet is about 7 feet tall.
After the metamorphosis, I will present my masterpiece, La Double Bullet Catch. Then I will close with a grand finale.
What is the grand finale?
I call it the Mysterious Farewell. It was first developed by the Hindu tribes of the Moroccan plains.
There are no Hindus in Morocco.
There are no plains either. That is why it's so mysterious. But first, we must practice the double bullet catch.
Ramon returns to the stage carrying 2 rifles. He is followed by Max, who pushes a cart with some additional props. Francisco takes 2 bullets from the top of the cart.
Here we have 2 lead bullets.
He hands the bullets to Hidalgo.
When you're satisfied that they are authentic, scratch your initials onto each one. Make sure your markings are legible.
Hidalgo removes a pen knife from his pocket and marks each bullet. He hands them back to Francisco.
Do we have powder?
Ramon retrieves a small flash from the cart and pours black powder into the muzzle of each rifle.
Now I will share my secret with you. The audience will not see this.
He opens his fist.
Together with the 2 bullets, I have 2 balls of wax in my hand. I will slip the bullets into my pocket and then load the wax into the rifles.
While Ramon holds each rifle, Francisco loads them using a rear run from the prop cart.
Next, I will put the straitjacket on, and Miss Whitman will blindfold me.
Francisco takes a straitjacket from the cart and guides him arm into the long sleeves. Max ties the sleeves behind his back and blindfolds him with a strip of cloth.
Senor Hidalgo, please confirm that I am securely bound.
Hidalgo tugs at the knotted sleeves.
The cabinets are ready?
Max nods. The black cabinet is positioned near center stage. The white cabinet stands 10 feet away toward stage left, and it's 5 feet farther downstage. The doors of both cabinets are closed and face toward stage right. An open padlock hangs on each door, and both doors are adorned with bull eyes about 6 feet off the ground.
In a moment, I will be locked inside the black cabinet. When I give the word, you will fire at the target on the black cabinet, and you will fire at the white cabinet. Miss Whitman, will then you unlock the white cabinet, and I will emerge with the 2 marked bullets in my hand.
How do you travel from one cabinet to the other?
I cannot reveal my secrets.
The wasps would not penetrate the cabinets. There will be no bullet holes.
It makes no difference. Nobody will notice.
Our prisoners are very perceptive. If there are no bullet holes, the trick will not be convincing.
My job is not to convince. My job is to amaze.
It would be more amazing with bullet holes.
Nobody asked for your opinion.
If I waited to be asked, I'd never get to say anything.
Max smiles wildly at Francisco and gives him a peck on the cheek.
Vaya con Dios.
Max opens the door to the black cabinet. Francisco steps inside and Max shuts the door behind him. She then closes the padlocks on both cabinets.
Okay, we're ready.
Gentlemen, you may count to 10 and then fire.
Count of 3 is traditional.
That is true. We always count to 3.
He needs time to get out of the straitjacket.
Just count to fucking 10.
Ramon hands a rifle to Hidalgo, who takes aim at the black cabinet. Ramon aims at the white cabinet.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Ramon and Hidalgo fire their rifles.
Is someone supposed to open the cabinet?
Sorry, that's me.
Max rotates the white cabinet 90 degrees so that the closed door faces the audience. She unlocks the padlock and opens the door. Confused.
It's empty.
Hidalgo takes the key from Max and unlocks the black cabinet. When the door swings open toward the audience, a hole is visible within the bull's eyes.
He's gone.
Where did he go?
Hidalgo shocks both of them by pulling Francisco's lifeless body out of the black cabinet. He still wears the straitjacket, which is stained with blood.
It is part of the trick.
Hidalgo checks Francisco's neck for pulse.
No, he's gone.
Lights out. Scene 5, an hour later in Hidalgo's office.
I once asked Francisco if he hated me. I knew exactly what he would say. Hidalgo, I do not hate you. I hate the system you represent.
That's what he said?
No, he said he hated me more than anyone else in the world. I do not understand. Why should he hate me more than the men that put him here, the men with the real power? He said, I do not hate them because they're not human. They're wolves. I cannot hate a wolf for wanting to eat me. You're not a wolf, but you're content to shine their silverware.
Don't take this the wrong way, but I'm sure he's not the only one in this place who hates you.
But he's the only one who died in my hands.
It was an accident. He must have mixed up the bullets.
No. He came to the chapel hoping to find a tunnel, but the tunnel was just a legend. When he saw it was not there, he chose to escape the only way that was possible.
What makes you think he was looking for a tunnel?
Hidalgo opens the bottom drawer of his desk, which houses a reel-to-reel audio tape recorder. When he presses a button.
There are only 2 rooms in this prison that are being big enough to hold an audience. One is the cafeteria, the other is the chapel.
You said the chapel is a place of false hope.
A false hope is better than none.
Hidalgo stops the tape.
I should have known you were listening.
How could you have known?
You asked me if I cooked when I was married. I never told you that I was married.
That was careless of me. I have been careless about many things.
Why didn't you cancel the show when you found out he was trying to escape?
I thought his failure would teach a lesson to the other prisoners. And there was another reason which I did not want to admit to myself. Francisco was attempting to do the impossible. Part of me wanted me to see him do it.
He hands her a roll of cash.
This belongs to you.
You kept your side of the bargain.
The bargain was a pretext. I was hoping Francisco will tell you something that will answer the committee's question. It might have spared him a great deal of suffering.
I guess he spared himself.
She offers the money back.
Keep it anyway. You can think of it as a foreign aid from Uncle Sam.
Hidalgo shakes his head. Max puts the money in her satchel.
I don't plan to write about any of this, except what he told me about Houdini.
Thank you for your discretion.
Do you want me to send you a copy of my story when it's finished?
I have no time to read for pleasure. I would prefer a picture postcard to remind me of New York City.
Max steps toward the door.
For your next article, you should consider a more contemporary topic. History is an interesting diversion, but we cannot move forward if we're always looking backwards.
Algunas veces tienes que ver el pasado para ver lo que tienes enfrente.
Very good. But the accent still needs working.
I'll keep practicing.
Lights out. Scene 6, the chapel. We flash back to the dress rehearsal, but our perspective is now reversed. Francisco, Max, Hidalgo, and Ramon have their backs to us. The Metamorphosis crate is at center stage.
Next, I will be confined to this postal sack.
Francisco steps into the crate and Max pulls the sack up over his head. She ties a string at the top. Francisco lowers himself into the crate. Max closes the lid and secures it with a padlock.
Now play the music.
Music starts.
Stop!
Music stops.
The music is terrible.
It is jaunty.
Let's get on with this.
Ramon starts the music again. As Max steps on top of the crate with the red curtain, Francisco opens a mobile panel in the back of the crate and crawls out of it. Kneeling behind the crate, he reaches into the sleeve of his suit jacket and removes a powder blue envelope, which he places on the floor. Meanwhile, facing away from us, Max raises the curtain rod above her head and then lowered it to her neck. Francisco climbs onto the crate and crouches down next to her, behind the curtain. When Max raises the curtain rod again, Francisco stands upright and takes it from her. She immediately jumps down behind the crate, and Francisco drops the curtain in front of himself.
Applause is optional.
On the floor behind the crate, Max picked up the blue envelope that Francisco left for her. She tucked it into the ruffle sleeve of her leotard, crouched through the back of the crate, and replaced the movable panel behind her. Lights out. Scene 7. 3 years later. Ramon wears a tailored gray suit and polished shoes. Ramon is dictating a letter to an unseen typist.
Miss Maxine Whitman, care of Life magazine, 19 West 31st Street, New York, United States of America. Dear Miss Whitman, your postcard arrived today at Penal de Santos. You forgot to include the return address, so I am writing to your place of employment. On behalf of my government, I must apologize that your card took 26 months to reach us. Our postal service values accuracy over timeliness. In any event, I regret to inform you that Señor Hidalgo is not present to receive your card. Shortly after your visit, he prepared his official report on the death of Miguel Francisco, which he deemed to be a suicide. A subsequent investigation by the Department of Corrections determined that Señor Hidalgo had acted with gross negligence following his dismissal. I was promoted to his former position. By the time you read this, you will have learned about the assassination of President Castillo Armas. I am pleased to report that we have overcome this tragedy under the leadership of General Idigoras Fuentes, who is already forging close ties with your country. The future is also bright at Penal de Santos, where I have restored a sense of discipline that was absent for many years. Finally, there's a curious fact that I must share with you. On the same day that your postcard arrived, we received an issue of a magazine called Variety. Needless to say, we are not subscribers. Out of curiosity, I flipped through the pages, but the only story of interest was about a magician who had just sold out Carnegie Hall. He called himself Don Misterioso. I cannot help but wonder, was Señor Francisco an imposter, or did his bag of tricks include immortality?
Lights out. Scene 8. We flash back to an early scene in Francisco's cell, shortly after he learned of Domingo's death.
Do you think he made another set of negatives? If you have any idea where they would be, I'll look for them.
For what purpose?
I can deliver them for you. What's the name of Domingo's friend? You don't trust me.
You are a journalist, so I trust you to publish my story. You are an American, so I have no reason to trust you for more.
You're right. You don't have a reason. But I'll give you a damn good reason if you shut up and listen. Give me a minute. I'm trying to think of a reason.
Francisco lies down in bed. Max does the same.
Good night. Good night.
Max makes a series of hand gestures in Mexican Sign Language during the rest of the scene. The stage goes dark for a split second. Then a spotlight illuminates Max at the side of the stage, a long distance from the bed where she had just been sitting. She is now wearing a tuxedo and a top hat. 3 steel rings hang from her arm. She throws them into the air one by one, catches them in succession, and demonstrates that the rings have been linking together. In a triumphant gesture, she tosses her hat aside to reveal short black hair that is slicked back close to her scalp. The marimba music reaches a crescendo and stops. Lights out. End of a play.
Thank you very much. Very well done. Congratulations to everyone. Gracias. It was great. And I would like now to invite the cast to start the Q&A, the conversation that we'll have now. First, let's give applause to Christopher Cancel-Pomales. Christopher, thank you. Next, Luis Ponce. Gracias, Luis. Let's give applause to Francés Ramos. Francés, thank you. And then Juan Luis Acevedo. And on stage readings, we have Andrea Velasco. Great. And this play was directed by Alejandra Maldonado. Alejandra. And finally, let's bring the playwright, Hal Borden. Hi, Hal. How are you? We're going to start now the Q&A. If you are here on Zoom, you can use the Q&A option. So please don't be shy. Share any comment or question that you have for our cast, for the director, or the playwright. And you're on Facebook. Also, you can write any comment. Anything you want to share would be great. So let's start with some questions for Hal. How are you, Hal? How do you feel?
I'm doing well.
Great. I would like to start asking you, just sharing with us your experience in Cimientos, especially the process of the discussions that we had back in February.
Yeah, for people who don't know, Cimientos brought together 10 playwrights who met every Wednesday afternoon over the course of 10 weeks. And each week we discussed the work of a different writer. And I've always been a little leery of writing groups because I think people are either too nice to each other because they're afraid of hurting each other's feelings, or they're too mean, in which case every session turns into a fight. But I thought this went really well because none of the writers was defensive about the work. Everybody was receptive to comments, and the writers were very critical of each other, I thought. Not of each other, but of each other's work. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the writers accepted the criticism and asked questions about the readers' reactions, I thought created an atmosphere that allowed people to be honest, while also being respectful and understanding of the difficulty of the writer's job, particularly at an early stage of development of a new work. Guillermo, you were the moderator of all our discussions, and I know you're the one supposed to be asking the questions, but I'm curious what your reaction was, watching this unfold over 10 weeks.
You mean like your play in particular? Or
no, just in general.
Oh, I agree with you. I think that we had a group that was able to bring like each, your own perspective on writing and theater. But especially each one of you were able to engage in each other's text in a way that without invading the creative process, but providing from your own your perspective, whatever you wanted to share. And I think that it was, you know, like every person is different, but I think that in general, it was very, I don't know, enriching and I hope it was that for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I have a question here from one of your, from one of the other playwrights. It's from Tom Block. He says, when we read this in the workshop, I said that I thought it was complete as it was. There was, however, much commentary from me and others. After all, that was the point. I was wondering if Hal made any changes due to the feedback he received at that time.
I did. Most of them were fairly subtle. I didn't add any scenes or add any characters or delete scenes or characters, but I think the points that came across in the workshop most strongly were that the motivations of some of the characters were unclear. In particular, Hidalgo. People weren't sure they understood why he would allow this magic show to go ahead. With Francisco, people weren't entirely convinced that he would tell his life story to this journalist. So I made some relatively subtle changes to help to establish those things, and I think I'm probably not there yet, but that was one of the main takeaways from the session we had.
Perfect. I would like to ask to the director, how was for you taking this text, and what was a challenge besides the platform that we're going to talk about in a sec, but just in the text, what do you find that it was? Oh no, like challenge.
For me, the biggest challenge is trying to maintain that engaging of storytelling, but also mixing it with how things happen at the same time. I think that the show has a lot of the play has a lot of magic in the way that it happens. Things happen at the same time, and that it's hard to convey through a stage reading. Mm-hmm. But I think that also trying to figure out and find when and what the characters know and when they learn it, and how to make those like small subtle changes that the audience then can go back to, like, oh, that now it makes sense how she said that, or now it makes sense how he said that. So that there's a lot of things that happen at the end of Act 1 that enrich all the conversations and all the interactions of Act 2. And I think that's like the hardest, trying to find those nuances in how we do it. And I think you did, all of you did amazing. So thank you so much.
Great. One spectator has a question for the cast. I'm gonna throw this to the cast, whoever wants to answer. How was the experience of working with this new platform? Anybody that wants to?
Not everyone at the same time. Who wants to go?
Alejandra, you choose. Which one?
No, I'll go.
No.
I'll go.
Okay. Yeah, that's not fair.
It's a fascinating experience because it's not theater, right? And it's not television or film. So we are trying to do a workshop of a play, understand the characters, and work with a concept of the director and trying to bring about the ideas of a playwright in the most honest way with the limitations that we have by not being connected in the same space. So it is a struggle in terms of not being able to create certain images that we would physically be able to commit to do if we were in a theater space. But I think that it's similar to the work you do at home. As an actor, when you're studying your script, you have to do your homework and you have to think about the lines, and you have to connect with the script. When you're going to that first reading, you're not off book, but you are connected to the sentiment and the value of each character. So I think that for me, it is a way to keep entertainment and to keep beautiful stories and important stories available for the audience. That's how I feel about this whole Zoom thing. It always gets me a little uncomfortable finding the right place to sit for a long time and not be distracting when I'm trying to shift. But yeah, it's a great instrument to continue pursuing, telling our stories and keeping ourselves present in the minds of the people. So when the theater opens, we're ready to go.
Great. Anybody else that wants to add something? Luis.
I will say this is a completely new beast that we are getting to know for the first time. It has so much potential, but I believe its potential, it's completely different from theater. We can't, it's been hard, this pandemic stuff, and we shouldn't call it like virtual theater or anything because it's not the same. And I feel like bringing the stuff you do exactly on theater live to the Zoom wouldn't work. We have to find the new way to bring this new experience to people through Zoom. That's what I feel. I agree with Juan Luis. It has so much potential, but at the same time, it was lonely. It was a lonely experience because I am not with my partners in the scene, feeding off from each other, listening to the director, being able to ask questions to the writer, and the energy that we collectively create on the space, not only between the artists, also with the audience. It's a magical experience to do it on theater live. So I feel like this is a completely new beast that we are getting to know, and it has a lot of potentials, but we have to find the potentials of the Zoom. That's what I feel.
Great. Christopher, I think that you want to say?
Yeah, I think it was interesting also for me that even though this is such a different thing, right? This is not what we're used to. I was feeling the same way in a sense that I would do if I was doing a performance on stage, like the anxiety at the beginning, feeling anxious before it started, just pacing around the house when I was not on the scene, like I was backstage, like all those things that I would do on a traditional show, if you want to call it that way, it was still happening, right? So there's still something of the theater that we know in this. It's just that it's got other rules that we need to figure out and we need to discover.
Great. Perfect. Let's bring maybe another comments or questions from Facebook, maybe for the cast, or the director, the playwright. Andrea, is anything on Facebook?
So far, we don't have any questions. They're a little shy over Facebook, but there's plenty of hearts and okay, thumbs ups. People are liking what they really love to play. But there's no question. Seems to be everything is pretty clear.
Perfect. We also got another comment from Johnny Perez saying, bravo, great job, you tamed this beast for sure. So that's great. And there is a question here for Hal. This is from one of the other playwrights from the program. What was the origin of this play? Was any of it based on real events?
It was based on real events in the sense that a lot of the information about Houdini is true. And in fact, all of the information about Houdini, except for the fact that he had a Guatemalan assistant, which he did not have. The other stories they tell about him are based on biographical accounts of Houdini. And the story of the Guatemalan coup of 1954, that historical context certainly informed the script, and there were a lot of the details in the script were based on actual events. The inspiration was reading a biography of Houdini and reading about a series of prison escapes that he performed in England and then the United States. These were the performances that really made him famous. He had been practicing magic for many years before he became a household name, and the prison escapes really helped to make him famous. And I thought it'd be interesting to think about what would happen if he were in a real prison, because while these escapes were impressive and he had techniques that nobody else had, they were also essentially publicity stunts, and he could manage the situation in ways that obviously a real prisoner cannot. So I thought the idea of having the world of illusion conflict with the world of reality and see what would happen would be an interesting place to start a play. And then thinking about a potential setting, I didn't want to set it in contemporary times, because then escaping from a prison is all about technology, and I wasn't interested in telling a story about technology. So in researching different times and places, I considered a lot of options. And when I read about the Guatemalan coup of 1954, I'm sure I learned about it in high school, but had forgotten about it long ago. And the more I read about it, the more I was fascinated. And that really became, at least thematically, the driving force of the script, even more than Houdini.
Great. And actually, you just answered a question by someone asking, why would you place this story in Guatemala in particular? And now that you heard, I don't know if this is the first time that you heard the entire play in read, is there anything after this experience, like listening to the whole play, that you would change, that you will review later?
Yeah, this is the second reading I've heard, and one of the other comments during our workshop is that my characters talk too much, and I think after the previous reading, I pared things down a little bit, and I will probably go through another round of paring things down to make sure that only the essential is left there. You know, other than that, structurally, I think I'm going to keep things pretty much the same. And you know, I was really happy with how it went. I was so pleased to be able to work with this group. You know, when the virus first reared its ugly head, it looked like we would not be able to have these readings. So it's not live theater, and it doesn't have the same energy as live theater, but it was a really delightful experience, and I'm glad we got to do it.
I do have one question here on this side, and this is for the playwright. I'm really curious to know, the most important thing is the trick of the elephant. Was that real? The explanation?
The explanation is based on a book written by a magic historian named Jim Steinmeier, who I think is probably accepted by magicians as the top authority in such matters. And he laid out an explanation very much like the one that Francisco gives in the script. The bottom line seems to be that nobody who saw the trick performed really thought it was all that impressive. But when you read in a newspaper, Houdini makes an elephant disappear, it grabs attention, and that's why he did it.
Great. Tom Block added here, words are the enemy of theater. Someone said that. So maybe he probably also someone brought this in our conversations. And there is a question here for that I'm gonna ask the director. Any thoughts from director on how they or you would visually see this play on stage? And I would like to add, since you use here subtitles and screen sharing, like, how do you see this visually on stage?
So the first time I read it, and all through our process till today, I really saw this not actually on theater. I was very captured by the descriptions, and I could only see animation for some reason. But after everyone's reading today, I was very, possessed with the idea of actually being able to stage a magic show, like having a magic show happening and having this, like maybe something backwards, like having this show happening and then the other things as an ideas. I don't know. Certainly, this reading made me realize of all this simultaneously and all the things that happen at the same time, and how to actually do it live. It was a magic show, and that was very interesting for me because I haven't seen it before. And the question you asked about the subtitles and the screen sharing at the end, with the subtitles, those lines that were included the subtitles already in the text, because like they were needed for understanding, there was information in them, so I didn't want to lose those. And thankfully Zoom has the feature to actually do live subtitles, which I was copy pasting through those sections. And about the ending with only the words in the screen sharing, I think there's a very powerful thing of experiencing interactions and conversations in a different way. This time, like how the deaf community experience some of our shows, which is like reading subtitles. So I really thought that, because I couldn't like share with you all the images of that were also included in the text as reference and proud moments, I really wanted to try to convey that moment of silence at the end, and how that moment of silence was filled with so much information. So that was the idea that came up, and I'm so happy that hopefully everyone saw it in the way I saw it in my head, because we're seeing different things.
That was awesome.
Thank you so much.
It was great that you use that you're familiar with the possibilities that the platform offers, and you use them. Like,
yeah, I think it's the silver lining of all my Zooming and all our Zooming that
and there is some sort of like of being like live, you know, that makes things like somehow, you know, like make you remember or, you know, think of theater, like being aware when to use this other tool and the other tool over there. So you did a great job.
Stage managing this thing back here. That's the thing. But yeah, and I just also wanted to say this doesn't have to do with that question, but it does have to do with the platform. Thank you so much, everyone, our cast and everyone that is seeing the reading and the Q&A. There's so much energy that goes into paying attention to Zoom these days, and all the time we spend in front of the interacting and getting all of our needs, social needs from the computer. And I know that it is a really hard and straining labor to be here and joining us. I'm just so grateful for everyone and for being engaged in the conversation and questions. So thank you so much. That's it. No.
Thank you for your work. And I have a last question for Hal. This is from Darren Reisberg saying, Hal, are you now inspired to spend any time in Guatemala? I guess whenever, you know, traveling is safer. And if so, might you also take some time to visit Oaxaca, Mexico? As an aside, it is a beautiful city.
I would very much like to spend time in Guatemala. The gentleman asking the questions is one of my smart-ass friends from Chicago who wants me to visit Oaxaca with him. So that may be in my future as well, but I would like to visit Guatemala.
That'd be great. Yeah. All right. So I think we're about to finish. Any last comments from anyone in the cast, or maybe Hal or Alejandra want to add something else? All right.
I'm just grateful to Alejandra and the cast for a wonderful experience.
Perfect. Thank you, Hal, for participating and being part of Cimientos 2020. It's been a pleasure to have you with us, to work with you and with Alejandra and with everyone in the cast. So Hal, just don't be a stranger. Keep us updated with your future works and projects. This play is the last play that we have for our program for Cimientos 2020. So we're very, very grateful with our audience, with anyone that's been working in every play. And I want to thank especially our IATI team, Andre, who's co-hosting this event with me, Winston, Lisa, who's been hosting readings too, Miguel, Gianni.
Which, by the way, Lisa say bravo for this reading.
Perfect. So we are very, very happy to be able to do this on Zoom. And we expect to grow from here, and we learn a lot. Thank you for your help and for your work and for sharing your talent with everyone. So if you missed any of the plays, and this is for the audience, if you miss any of the plays, you can go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel, the IATI Theater, and you will find them there. And let me remind you that if you want to support us, you can do so by visiting iatitheater.org/donate. We are a nonprofit organization, and a donation of any amount will help us tremendously. We want to maintain our programs. We want to keep working and doing theater in any way possible. And we want to continue with Cimientos 2021 and with other programs that we have ahead. So thank you very much. And from the bottom of my heart to all the playwrights and directors and cast that be working, I'm very grateful. And stay tuned with IATI and whatever we're going to be doing in the future. So good night, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.